for someone to be a believer, they need to know what it means to be a non-believer and vice versa. This was so dense, it took me 4 years to finish both those volumes. Torn when Mufasa in The Lion King dies, yes.
Yeah.
But as a child, I'm also like, what just happened? What's his journey now? Is he just gone? The mantra that's being sung is Asatoma Sadgamaya, from darkness lead me to light, making dense philosophical anime comics about the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, all that kind of stuff. And then in college, my first college, I was not having the best of time. So I locked myself in a very aesthetic room for 8 hours. One of the sadhus there said a very interesting thing, कि अब देव भूमि जो है वो दानवों का अड्डा बन गया है। जब जब कोई समाज अधर्म की चरम सीमा पर पहुंच जाता है, तब तब वो धर्म का सबसे बड़ा ढोंग करता है, सबसे बड़ा दिखावा करता है, सबसे बड़ा नंगा नाच करता है। It's kind of like what Jesus said on the cross while he's dying. One of his last words were, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they are doing." And she offered me a place to lend my voice in one of her anthologies that she'll be accumulating and editing.
Show by Naghma. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the next show by Naghma, and I'm extremely excited for today's episode. I'm with somebody who I've known since his first book. He launched his first book when he was just 21, but I've always been a fan of his writing. Today with me I have Harsheath Chauhan. Harsheath, welcome to next show.
Hi.
How are you? How is everything going?
Great, very, very busy with a lot of things not going according to plan, but that's how I love it. Like just it being very adventurous and spontaneous. So it's all making sense now that the year is wrapping around, but had been stressful, but that's also a part of the adventure. So.
You started with your first official journey as a writer, publishing your book just 2-3 years ago when you were 21, which means you're still young. So are you a student now or are you a full-time writer?
I just graduated last December from this place called Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, US. So I always describe it as the Himalayas of the US or the Mussoorie of the US. And that was a very alternate kind of an education system, Hindu-Buddhist institute. That really made me a lot more serious about integrating themes of spirituality, activism, politics into my writing and experimenting with alternative styles of writing. So graduated from there in December, and since then, this had been a very experimental year till this point. And it had been a lot of just working on my next projects, figuring out the next steps, and that we can talk about as the episode unfolds.
That's interesting. So one thing that quickly pops to my head, or I think anybody would be, you've had your schooling in Mussoorie.
Yes.
And you've lived abroad in between. That means you've literally had all of the international education and everything that you're talking about. But when it comes to your writing, it has been very rooted to the Indian culture. And even you as a person, you've always been very highly spiritual, not religious in any way, but very highly spiritual. So these are few things that is a little difficult for us to connect. Like, where did the deviation happen? When did these topics or these, I wouldn't say topics as such, I think that's a very, very vague way of putting it, but when did this interest into our culture, our history, our myths, our deep religion, everything put in together, where did this interest actually start coming in?
Sure. So I would say that a true theist needs to first know atheism, or that needs to be a non-theist at first. And a true non-theist should be a theist at some point, which basically means for someone to be a believer, they need to know what it means to be a non-believer and vice versa. So the journey kind of started that way, where I was introduced to, let's say, the legends and the culture and the traditions of the land. But as you're growing up, you have a rebellious attitude. So you start asking a lot of questions. Now, when you ask these questions, you get a lot of responses like, you're not supposed to say this or ask this. And now for a rebellious teenager who does not look at things from a nuanced perspective, this means that, okay, I'm not supposed to ask about these things, which to me at the time seemed like blind traditions. So why should I even care for it? Let me go away from it.
Yeah.
That was my journey at first of becoming what I would call an atheist. It was then that a few years after that, I was still fascinated by these stories though.
Yeah.
So I went on my own inner explorations then, and I kind of used to theorize that if there is any form of divinity, it would be like this. It would be very nature oriented. It would be about the harmony of the mind, body, and spirit. It would not be dogmatic. It would not be bound by any kind of rules and tradition or any of those things. Those are simply paths. Those are just kind of conversations I had in my mind.
Yeah.
So when I actually started reading instead of just blindly believing, then I kind of sort of realized it was a little bit of, oh, like I kind of knew this already when I was reading these things, but these people have put it in words a lot better than I could have. So then that was the exploration of one of the core texts, which is kind of like a PhD level text, is called, it's the Bhagavad Gita commentary by Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's written autobiography of a yogi.
Yes.
And those are two very, very dense texts. I would never recommend anybody to start with that. I don't know. I don't know why I started with it.
Reference textbooks.
Yes, and this was so dense. It took me 4 years to finish both those volumes. But I still, that's just my attitude. I think as an ultra runner, that now that I'll stick to it. Like it's my ultra run, it's my marathon. I'll crawl if I have to. I will reach the finish line. So I did, and it took a lot of like reading it again and again and over and over.
Yeah.
And that was one of my starting steps. And then I came across many amazing people through my journey. So now I'm at a point where if somebody would ask me that, are you an atheist, are you a theist, I prefer not to answer, because words don't do justice to the experience.
I can actually understand. I mean, no offense, but the autobiography of Yogi, oh my God, I think I have this book with me since so many years. Being a practitioner of yoga also, there's something that, and even being an avid reader, there's something that I never got myself into start, because I don't know if I start, how long it'll take me to finish that journey. I'm like, no, I don't want to get into this. But this is a very interesting journey that you've had. So where does writing fit into it?
What I've been told by my parents, by my family members, is that ever since I could even pick up a crayon, I guess, I've just been writing and scribbling, and it would not even be anything cohesive, but I would just be mumbling, and I would just write, and I would be making stories of fan fiction of Lion King since I was like 3 years old or something like that. So it was a very interesting mix of all this Disney stuff. And even with the animated stuff, it was very rooted in mature themes since I was a kid. For some reason, I was always intrigued by this concept of death. Like I was torn when Mufasa in The Lion King dies, yes. But as a child, I'm also like, what just happened? What's his journey now? Is he just gone? Those were some of the ponderings. So I was very fascinated by that. And I think children are usually fascinated by these subjects. I'm glad my parents or the rest of my family encouraged those explorations through stories. Because of that, I was also encouraged to explore dark themes, or let's say mature themes, in stories like Mahabharata and Ramayana. I would read their children versions, but also when I would explore them in my mind mentally, I remember as a kid, and for anybody who would just take this out of context, it might sound like, okay, this kid was just a psychopath since he was a kid. But I would ponder over, like,
it's running in my head.
I would think about the 18-day war, what's happening, the carnage there, the bloodshed. I think somewhere we take away those elements away. We turn it into more of a romanticized poem. And that's there. That element also exists. But we forget to take the realism out of it, because it is so real. It is so gritty. It is the story of society. And that's just my brain, I guess, was wired since that way, since I was a child, to absorb it in that sense. So then what started happening is that I would come across something like a Star Wars, which is very inspired by Eastern mythologies, Eastern philosophies. The concept of the Force is basically Shakti. And then there's the Atman, and then there's the dark side, light side. There's all of these concepts which in some way, shape or form, you will find in Indic traditions, Buddhist traditions, Hindu traditions, Jain traditions. It's there in the under that umbrella for sure.
Yeah.
Then I came across something like a Matrix that also has, it's very, very inspired from Eastern traditions. In fact, the last scene between Neo and Agent Smith, the mantra that's being sung is Asatoma Sadgamaya, from darkness lead me to light. And that's from one of the Upanishads. I don't remember the name. But whenever I would see that, it's like, okay, my culture is being represented, yes. But for one, I can do a much better job at it. The child's ego.
Yeah.
And then just second, why are we not popularizing our stories? Why aren't we like really making dense philosophical anime comics about the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, all that kind of stuff? And that really stuck with me. And so that's the story behind why I was fascinated by these stories. And writing is it just happens to be a happy accident. Like, I need to let it out. Some ways I run it out and I sweat it out, but that's not enough. So it's just an energy that needs to be purged, and writing becomes one of those mechanisms then.
Such a disturbed child brain. I have no idea what your parents were going through, what your relatives would have commented, but yeah, that's the only thought that's coming into my head. But these are very interesting things, right? When you're talking about the dark parts of Mahabharata also, it just reminded me of Gaurav Mohanty's books. I've always kept telling that the book is so brutally rough. So it's a little too difficult for me to read because it's so rough, but it's so beautifully crafted. But at the same time, when you also told about the animated versions and the stories coming out, I just recently, 2 days ago, watched the latest Narsimha movie, the animated one.
Yes.
It was so interesting. The concepts were so nicely covered, and it was a visual treat.
Of course.
So when it comes into these adaptations, there are a lot. There are these big series coming out with 300, 400 episodes, which comes in our OTT also now, and in channels where we also grew up watching all the Mahabharata and Ramayana and Doordarshan when we were kids. And then there are a lot of books. So given that you are also a true, how do I call it? You pursue all of these stories very deeply. When these adaptations come into picture, are there any recommendations from the adaptations? Because everybody is not a reader, let's be honest. But are there any good recommendations that you would have for people in terms of any adaptations which you also love watching?
More than watching, can we talk about books first?
Yeah.
So the 3 books to any beginner I would recommend. It could be slightly on the pricey side because those are picture books.
Yeah.
Those are called Namaha, Purnam and Sarvam.
Yes.
And this is by an author and artist called Abhishek Singh. And it is a visual treat, as you were calling. I don't like to compare different art styles, but if the movie that you were calling was a visual treat, then this is like a million times above that. And the crazy part about it is that it's not even a movie yet, or it's not even a TV show. It's just in the form of a book
with pictures that art that he's created.
So to just break it down in very simple terms, Namaha is the story of the Shiv Puran, or the philosophy more so. Purnam is about the Devis, the Devi Bhagavatam Puran. Sarvam is a collection of many short stories, and they have many beautiful paintings of all the gods and goddesses and mini stories in between. Very easily readable, very digestible. Can be a coffee table book also, but you can also spend a month like my chacha did with these books. So it can become its own tool of meditation, because I believe that when there's a fellow seeker who is creating something and it's coming from the depths of their soul, when they've created it in a meditative space, the way the mirror neurons work actually is that when you see that kind of work and you have the receptivity, when you are open and feminine from within and receptive, then your neurons are mirroring the other person's, and you can feel a taste of the trance that they had. And that I've heard for those books or that kind of art from anybody who has encountered it.
Very true.
So those are 3 just picture books to start with. Shows.
I back that recommendations because the picture, it's meditative in its own ways. When you're just reading and you have the picture right there, you just slow down.
Yes.
It takes it takes you into a very transcendental
Mhm.
world where
Mhm.
you just
Mhm.
can keep staring at the image that's
Mhm.
right in
Mhm.
front of you and then keep reflecting what is written. It's such a beautiful journey. And I've
Yes.
only read Naghma till date.
Okay.
So I'm still
Okay.
regretting not having read anything else, but yeah, that's still been an amazing journey.
No,
Yes.
it's amazing work. And in terms of TV shows, I would always recommend people Upanishad Ganga.
Mhm.
And I don't know how many people are familiar with that. They're more familiar with the Ramayana and Mahabharata.
Yeah.
Those are great in their own ways. To a modern audience, may not be as appealing. I love that old-fashioned stuff. I love it when it's classic and it's made in that way. But a modern Gen Z kid, let's say, might not like that. Upanishad Ganga still, it's a very interesting premise, and it has, I think, 108 episodes.
Okay.
And each episode is on YouTube.
Yeah.
And Chinmaya Mission, I think, came out with these.
Okay.
And they are about different stories from the legends of India. Some of them are the lost legends.
Yeah.
More than the stories, why I like them, there are so many TV shows, there are so many books.
Mm.
Why I like these, or why I like Abhishek's books also, for that matter, is because they really touch the depths of the matter. They are really well explored. They're very philosophical.
Yeah.
They make you think instead of this is the story. Hanuman flew to the sky. Now he gobbled up the sun. Okay, let's give this person a major publishing deal. No, please actually give explore voices, seek voices which are really, who have tasted that philosophy, who have really lived it. So Upanishad Ganga for sure.
Upanishad Ganga. This is something that even I've never. Thank you for the recommendation. I think I should also try.
I'm pretty sure people might not know the name. They would have seen reels from it everywhere, but not even knowing the name.
Interesting. And this is definitely something to go back and explore. So when you started your writing journey, you started with Kaliyuga. Book 1 came out, did amazingly well. Congratulations on that. Book 2 came out. So you had your thoughts on what you want to write down, right? And you try to add in your sci-fi elements, you added in your own characters, you built your own world, and you created your amazing fiction. How was your writing journey like? Because you've also been a very active writing student. You've been learning creative writing. So how do you mix and match? Like, how was your learning process? And when it was finally coming out in form of a product, in terms of a book? Ultimately, it's a product. It's a very vague way of telling it, but it's your final product. How was this journey?
So initially, writing the first book was a very raw experience because I still wasn't very professionally trained. I had read a little bit, but by that point, for 2 years, I had not even been an avid reader. Let me say that I was kind of like, I could compare that to Hanuman having forgotten his powers. I forgot what I was really about. I forgot my love for stories, and I was caught up in all kinds of other things which I should probably not have been caught up with. And then in college, my first college, I was not having the best of time. So with kind of, as dramatic as it sounds, with having kind of an existential breakdown, I locked myself in a very aesthetic room for 8 hours, and I scribbled 80 pages of notes. And that was one of my first a trance kind of an experience, a flow state, let's call it, a state of mental harmony. When that happened, I could literally feel the emotions of my characters, see them materialized and all of that. So I wrote a little note to myself at the end of that entire experience that whatever I just saw can't stay up here. It needs to be out in some way, shape or form. And it needs to find its material place in the world. It needs to become a product. So then I took a term off from college. Then I traveled to the Indian ranges of the Himalayas. This was in Ladakh, Mussoorie, Himachal, all kinds of different places. I would run from one monastery to the other. I was preparing for an ultra marathon at that time. And that's when Kaliyuga in the first book kind of happened. So it was a very raw experience without any professional training, without any professional planning. Like, this is how I write a story. I just went for it. It happened. It was a very natural process. Now that had happened, and now that I'd found an inner voice which had been missing for the last few years, I was encouraged to take this path more seriously. I wanted to explore themes of, let's say, activism that I've explored in my book, or politics, but more than that, even the science of the self. What does it mean to really know yourself. And my art forms, running for it is an art for me, let's
Yeah.
say. That's all just a process of trying to know myself by forgetting myself. So then I went to that place that I talked about, Naropa University, Boulder, Colorado. This was a Hindu Buddhist inspired university. More than that, they had a very cool writing program there, which dealt with such themes.
Okay.
That was the more professional training. Professional, yes, but still informal in many ways. Informal because they don't really teach you any style. They are telling you to experiment. They're giving you techniques, go experiment.
Okay.
My experiments for 2 years used to be just sitting by one of the flowing creeks, like a mini river, let's call it,
Okay.
and just be scribbling all day round. And just that was my time of like deep introspection and solitude and communing with nature. And
Wow.
that was my deep love for nature, my deep respect for our roots, which more than culture or tradition goes back to the primordial elements of Prakriti, nature.
Yeah.
So it was writing there. It used to be very flow state oriented. Now it depends on what themes I am writing about. Like let's say if I am writing about Kali, for instance, Ma Kali, then I, through my own, let's say, meditations or ponderings or mental experiments, I would try to attain a kind of state of consciousness where I can talk about that in the way most honest, most genuine, most authentic.
Yeah.
And this self has to take a sidestep. This has to kind of retire, and something else needs to replace it.
Okay.
And that I like to call it method writing, kind of just get so lost in it.
Yeah.
So it becomes a kind of flow state meditation. I don't want to give it any kind of a spiritual fragrance. It's just harmony. It's just you experiment so much with your mind, with your body, and then you start attaining those states of harmony more and more and more. So it was just that. It's just attaining kind of a more natural state of flow.
Wow, you keep away all the spiritual journeys and everything. You just reminded me of the entire story about Christopher Nolan. Literally. I mean, if you remember, the very first time we interacted was over Instagram. I finished reading your book and I told you, I compared it to a Nolan movie, and you were, I don't know in which cloud you were. They're like so happy I did it. But then your experience, now what you're talking about, how you write, how you try to be as genuine as possible in terms of every single thought process that you're putting into your book. Now I know why it is so. Like, I mean, that's a genuine, honest feedback, and that's an amazing journey. But at the same time, it will also, it's not just about what others get to read thanks to what you have been doing. I'm sure it's a very fulfilling journey for you yourself also, then to deep dive, to learn more, to explore more. So do you get lost also when you're trying to write? Because ultimately that's a you need to sit down, write, but in your meditative state you might be in your own flow in a different way altogether. Does this go hand in hand for you? Like, there are times it takes two different directions.
It's kind of like learning how to drive a car or how to ride a horse, maybe, or trying to do any kind of new thing that you haven't explored before. But genetically it's there in you. Like we have, let's say, descended from warrior clans and cavemen and what not have our ancestors been. So that's all there somewhere in our subconscious mind. It's just tapping into that. And some of those techniques, and those are not even like something too secretive or anything. It's just basic breathing techniques, basic interacting with nature. But it's the basic which is so complicated after all. So because it takes a lot of practice, it takes more than that. It takes a lot of discipline. So at first, like when you're driving, you might be driving and you might just crash somewhere. That can also happen. I hope it does not. So maybe having an instructor with you is a great way to learn how to drive at first. Then you get the flow of it. Then you're driving, but you've never driven before. So in the same city that you've grown up in, you can get lost in the same mind that you've grown up with.
Very true.
So
very true.
Then you have to kind of find your way back. So these analogies that I'm using are basically saying that, yes, there will be those times when anybody who is genuinely trying to like really understand what's going up here will face those moments of despondency, of helplessness, of being lost even. That's a part of the process. That cannot be there cannot just be bliss. There
Yeah.
cannot be an eternal happiness or
Yeah.
a state of like perfect enlightenment. It's just very ordinary emotions that we have blocked, that we have
Yeah.
suppressed, that we have to just really, really feel
Yeah.
to kind of fix those psychological fractures in the
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
and understand who we really are. And it's a constant process. I don't believe in the myth of modern day perfect state of enlightenment or whatever else. I just think that it's there are states of harmony. You have to find in which ways you are harmonious. For
Yeah.
somebody,
True.
that can be breathing and writing a certain way. For somebody, that can be doing the work that you do. For somebody, it's writing or wrestling or many different things can help in that meditative
Yeah.
state, let's call it.
Yeah.
So
Such a simple question, who
Yeah.
are you or who we are?
Yes.
But such a complicated answer for every single person. And most of us live our lives not even understanding the answer to it. So I think that's a journey in itself altogether. So where does activism comes into all of this? Because you've been, from what you talk, from what you do, from what your characters do, in both your books for that matter. So where does activism fit into all of this?
the activism fits in with the religious dissonance that we see in India as a whole, but not even in India, just in the world as a whole. So let me put it this way. The dissonance that I'm talking about is that there's something that is preached and there is something that is practiced.
Yeah.
Very different things.
Totally.
For instance, that we are the land that worships goddesses.
Yeah.
We are the land that treats women savagely every day as well.
True.
And have all kinds of misogynistic, patriarchal attitudes. People who want to defend this will say, oh, it's not a part of the actual texts or whatever. To me, that doesn't matter. That sounds like apologism. Because it might not have been a part of whatever the ethos is. It has very much been a part of the culture and the tradition, and to this day, and anybody disagreeing is just trying to be very myopic about it. So there's that dissonance where there's like a very beautiful philosophy, worshipping goddesses, like men bowing down and surrendering to the divine feminine when everybody else is talking about a patriarchal version of God. That's beautiful. And somewhere we have lost touch with it. There is still in pockets that exists.
True.
Another one is that we worship, let's say, Lord Shiva, who is known as Pashupatinath, Lord of Nature. I visited Tungnath recently this year. That's one of the, I think, one of the highest temples of Lord Shiv. And while walking up, I was reminded of all the beautiful mountains that I've seen, and it was a surreal experience, and it looked like the best mountains I've ever seen in my life.
I'm sure you would have trekked all the way.
Yes, it was just 3.5 kilometers. I was in my own zone and I just flew. And within 40 minutes or so, just brisk walking up that thing, I just was, again, it was a flow state moment for me. With Shiv, that's my relationship with him anyway. The one thing though that really spoke to me was that beautiful mountains, great people around, so much trash, so much litter, so much animal abuse going on. There's like people who are beating up donkeys, and there's like all these people who can't trek themselves, trek up, but all of a sudden they are talking about, oh, we had such a great experience up the mountain or the Shivling or whatever. The Shivling has its place, yes, it's divine. I felt it. The mandir has its place. It's divine, ancient architecture. Yes. The dissonance is though that when that becomes the object of worship and everything around it is kind of in its own mess. And I was talking to people around, and I was talking to extended family that this seems like a very probable cause for a pralay. If there is a divine entity, let's not even talk in divine terms. Let's talk in cause and effect. You are cutting down trees, you're making all these hotels, you're trashing this place. It is a recipe for disaster. There are bound to be landslides, there are bound to be floods. And in the last month or two, we saw that. We saw floods like probably
even last week.
Like in the last 20 years, maybe we've not seen floods like that in the mountains. And even now, like Mussoorie and all these other places. One of the sadhus there said a very interesting thing. कि अब देव भूमि जो है वो दानवों का अड्डा बन गया है. So that was very profound. That was kind of the key which I was looking for, that what is this religious dissonance? And there is another kind of an aghor figure that I've had the privilege to have met. And he said something very interesting. जब जब कोई समाज अधर्म की चरम सीमा पर पहुंच जाता है, तब तब वो धर्म का सबसे बड़ा ढोंग करता है, सबसे बड़ा दिखावा करता है, सबसे बड़ा नंगा नाच करता है. And that we see with a very distorted kind of Christianity that America is practicing right now. That's what we see with our traditions and our culture. That the more we are showing who we are, we're taking pride in this thing, the less we really are those things.
Interesting. Yes. Oh my God. I mean, yes. I mean, that's a lot of perspectives that you're bringing in. I don't want to create any controversies, but definitely, I mean, it's even amazing to see that you take into consideration all of these things, because how many of us even think about those? Like, even if we go somewhere, like how we were telling the example of Tungnath, it's not just there, it's anywhere. We tell so much about the divine experience and so much good about the nature and everything, that we feel so rooted and grounded and everything, and you step out and you're the first person to throw out the trash. So unfortunately, we've been living in that way. I don't know when each of us are responsible for it, but when we will change, but yeah, high time for
I think one of the mentality problems that has been created, and this is not to diss on you, but the dharmic podcasts of sorts that we've seen a rising trend of those. It's great. Talk about your culture, talk about traditions. What that's really empowering though is something very problematic. That's empowering and emboldening this kind of a sense of you have had this unique divine experience, hence you are spiritually superior, hence you are better. You saw Shiv in some meditation, you saw Kali in some meditation. You felt something here, so it's your anata opening up, or here, and this and that. So now that becomes an excuse to treat anyone however you want. That becomes an excuse to, okay, now I'm validated. I watched that podcast. I've had a certain feeling during any of these breathing practices, any of these meditative practices, or I might have a vision during my sleep. And all of a sudden now I'm more superior than you are because you've not had those experiences. So now I'm going to a mandir and I'm feeling this way, and I can actually feel alignment within me. But now that's my license to act however else I want to. I think any vision, any divine experience is beautiful. I'm not invalidating that. If you have felt it, if you have genuinely felt it, it's the blessing of the universe. Take it like that. Nothing special about you. Sorry. So many people have come. Ravan had the pure darshan of Lord Shiv. None of these things really matter. It matters how you're acting about it. You have all these experiences, great. I know atheists who act more moralistic than people who claim to be like, oh, religious, and we've experienced this and we've done this sadhana. Sadhanas, all these practices, tapasyas are great. They are divine tools to like access superior states of consciousness, let's say. What are you doing in real life? And another issue that I also think that has happened is a lot of the Baba syndrome, which still hasn't gone away. There used to be a time when we had the likes of a Krishnamurti, a Vivekanand, for all his flaws and blemishes, even someone like an Osho, the guy who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda. These people learned all that they had to, and in some way, shape or form, their masters had told them that learn English also, study geopolitics, study philosophies of other worlds. The world is interconnected like never before. Go and preach and talk and just go spread the message. And that, I'm afraid, I don't think we will see someone mainstream like any of those figures in the coming times, because they weren't giving straight answers for your problems. They were telling you that you have to do the work. Nobody likes that.
Exactly.
What people like is someone like a Baba I won't name, who would rather say that I have heard this thing from this God, you go to this temple and all your problems will be solved. Or there was this attack in this place and I could have predicted it before, but I did not predict it because it would have spoiled God's plan. So I let that attack on innocent civilians happen. So we see a fan following of people who are giving miracles or are giving divine providence is what we want. We want straight answers. We want, instead of like, kisko itna sochna hai? Like, my son's dying of cancer or whatever, I take him to some Baba blesses.
I just need a miracle.
And you need a miracle. And that's also a phenomena that's taken place in has been for many years. And these people have genuine faith. These people are not the issue really. They are genuine, honest people who have experiences, who believe in divinity, believe in something higher than themselves. And there are people who understand that language, that lingo, so they know how to manipulate them. And then it kind of, you can't really, it's kind of like what Jesus said on the cross while he's dying. One of his last words were, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they are doing." And it kind of then comes down to that wow, really, like as much as I want to blame the population and the society and everybody else, no, like somewhere our minds are being hacked. It takes a lot of effort and even privilege at times to undo all that wiring, and it takes effort.
That's a huge game of manipulation also. Like, for example, even I'm a convent student. Every prayer started with, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." It doesn't give me the license to sin again. That's not the point at all. What you're talking about. And even experiences that you're talking about, ultimately it boils down to how an individual can connect to oneself. Like, I'm a yoga practitioner. I have experiences which I know I cannot explain, but that doesn't give me the right to be superior, or it doesn't mean, like, today if I don't practice regularly, like for the last 1 year I've not been practicing, I have zero experiences. But when I know that I'm very regular with practices, I know the kind of clarity that you get, the focus that you get, the connection that you feel to yourself, the groundedness that you feel. But if I don't take it outside by being kind to others, by being more human in nature, I don't think none of this ever matters at all. Like, ultimately it all boils down to very few things.
Like,
but
what are you really doing? And
exactly.
And another thing is that I think we are detached from ordinariness. What that means is that whatever is ordinary around us, whatever is like the boring and the mundane, we treat that as like it's lesser somehow. There's this whole concept, the beautiful philosophy of Adi Shankaracharya has kind of been distorted into this sense of everything is Maya, so everything is bad. It's some kind of a satanic delusion. And now we're talking the language of the West, which did not exist here. We did not have these distinctions. This is here, yes. Like, let me give an example of Yudhishthir, who is going to heaven, and we immortalize this, or we immortalize him as the person who could have walked up to heaven himself, and somehow he's superior to the other Pandavas. Arjun had the opportunity to be in heaven when he's doing his sadhanas, and he's the son of Indra. He could have been the next Indra. He's not there. He comes back for his duty. Leave Arjun. We can also make a case for why Yudhishthir is better than him. But are you really telling me that Yudhishthir is better than someone like a Shri Ram or someone like a Shri Krishna, who left their lives on this earth, who really showed us that all your heavens and hells, all your mythologies, everything, it is here, it ends here, this is it. That's what they showed us in their human incarnations. Avatar means divinity descending into a human form. And they are leaving their lives on this planet. And we kind of tend to mythologize these concepts of this heaven and hell and all of this, what is beyond. There's this moksha, which is not here. It's never here. It's always beyond. And that's, though the Babas love that. The Babas love you to think it's not here. The Babas want you to leave everything behind. They want you to give it to them, in fact. They want you to not even think about your senses. They want you to, they want to tell you your senses are unreliable. Yes, in a certain context they are, but they will be using their brain and they will say whatever they have to. So that kind of becomes my problem, is when we start romanticizing these experiences to the point where we forget touching the feet of a tree. If that's a practice from nursery, preschool, no matter what religious school, no matter what religious upbringing, learn the language of nature, and then perhaps stop selling your nature to billionaires for a rupee or a paisa per acre. So that I think we can learn.
That's where hypocrisy comes into the picture. But what is next for you in terms of your journey like? Because I understand one thing you've been exploring a lot is anything related to the Devi Bhakti followers, the yoginis. A lot of things has been coming out from you itself in our last conversations. How are you mixing all of this with your writing, and how does your writing journey looking like?
So I recently stumbled across a very amazing opportunity by a great author, and she's the author of the best-selling Sati series by Pan Macmillan India. and her name's Koral Das Gupta.
Yeah.
And she offered me a place to lend my voice in one of her anthologies that she'll be
Yes.
accumulating and editing.
True.
And back then, when this offer was even made, of course I was on cloud 9.
Of course.
And I wrote the story, I
Yeah.
wrote the best that I could,
Yeah.
and I sent it in. I had no expectations in the sense that I knew, okay, a big publisher is associated with it. What does this really mean? None of that. I didn't know that. And then randomly I'm reminded, oh, I have a LinkedIn because this publisher has tagged me on my LinkedIn
Yeah.
and they've tagged me on my Instagram. And then
Yeah.
I see the list of authors who are there with me.
Yeah.
And I don't like to think in terms of status that somebody's better than the other person because
Yeah.
they've written more.
Yeah.
But let's say in this context, I am not as experienced.
Yeah.
I haven't written as much. I
True.
haven't explored as much.
True.
And in those line of authors, I was that kind of this anomaly. Like how did this kind of happen
Yeah.
without any
Oh,
proper
God.
route or agents or whatever is involved? It just was so random because Koral ma'am knew my work and she was
Yeah.
familiar with me and she knew I was working on the Devis. So the next project, the next project that's coming out in May 2026, it's called Sati Stotram.
Yeah.
And it's the lesser known stories of women from the Indian mythos. It's like the philosophies of the yogini. That's the story that I opted for. There are other feminine characters who have not been explored, and that's been explored in that book. And there are authors like Kavita Kane ma'am, Anand Neelkantan sir, and lot more. My mind's going blank right now just talking about it.
Congratulations. Yes.
But-
I mean, it's an amazing achievement. I mean, like I said, like you yourself said, it's not about comparing who is great or who is not. It's about also people who've been experienced and being able to be recognized by some of those people that your voice also matters.
Yeah.
And that really is important. And what exactly, if you can give us a little bit more about what you have written in that?
Sure.
Is it more around the Chaucer Yogini or like what have you written about
It's
it?
about the legend of the Chaucer Yoginis.
Oh, it is.
Let me put it. Let me put it this way, though.
Mhm.
It's a short story, 6,000, 7,000 self-contained short story.
Yeah.
I would describe it as the last 2 episodes of a long series, of a one season limited series. The last 2 episodes of it. It's the finale of everything that's unfolding in my story, and it in many ways addresses some of these religious dissonances in the
Yeah.
sense of what is practiced, what is preached.
Yeah.
It is trying to reclaim spiritual feminism, not from the point of view of, I've read this from many people who try to talk about it from the point of view of, oh, women were not represented, so we'll write about women without really understanding
Yeah.
their role in it. But just because we'll write about a Ramayana from this unknown character's perspective, some of them have written beautifully. But I think now it's become kind of like more of a trend, like let's just write about them kind
True.
of a thing.
Very true.
This story becomes more than even the feminine character. I'm not trying to deify her. I'm not trying to deify this yogi in the sense, I'm not trying to call her a flawless goddess. She is flawed. She is not some damsel in distress. She's a damsel who causes distress. This
Yeah.
I was inspired by Gaurav Mohante.
Gaurav's exact
Yes,
words.
yes.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me because
Yeah.
whenever anybody is trying to then write about women, especially as a guy, if I'm trying to deify them and put them on a pedestal almost,
Yeah.
that loses the plot because they're as beautifully flawed, mesmerizingly human. And that's also there. This character is flawed. This character in the end is thinking that, okay, I think I accomplished what I was set out to. There's been so much of collateral.
Yeah.
Was it even worth it?
Yeah.
And you as the audience will be feeling that, was it really worth it? She sounded so convinced. She was talking to, let's say, Kali this
Okay.
entire time.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, towards the end, she just is lost. And that's the story of all of us. Whether we are having these experiences,
Yeah.
whether we are spiritually awakened or no matter what,
Yeah.
that doubt will remain perhaps even in one's last moments,
Yeah.
perhaps even when we accomplish those great divine goals that we're set out to.
That's amazing. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
this amazing achievement. I'm wishing you all the very
Thank
best
you.
for that. And what about your, I'm sure you're writing your next book as well.
So instead of focusing on Kaliyuga's next book, I took the tough decision to focus on a brand new project, which I'd been
Okay.
feeling since last year.
Okay.
I'd just felt this crazy pull towards the Devis. And one of the reasons was Abhishek Singh's Purnam, the picture book that I was talking about. The other was that there was a Bawarchi at our college campus in the US, and he happens to be a hardcore Kali Upasak, and he was a Buddhist monk as well, and he used to practice the Tantric Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, if I'm not mistaken. So it was an amalgamation of all of this that I was really drawn towards Kali, and towards the start it feels like you are choosing this path, but you are like a month or two in, or in my case, I was a year in, and then turns out, okay, it was, I wasn't doing it as crazy or as poetic as it sounds. Like it seemed like a whole accident, but it was all destined in a story writer's perspective. So the next book is going to be a fantasy, a grimdark fantasy, a philosophical fantasy, let's call it. It's going to be about Ma Kali. I won't talk about the plot as much. I'll disclose the name that might change, let's say. The name is Kal Ratrix. The philosophy behind the name, the meaning behind the name is that Kal means Mrityu and Samay, death and time. Death is philosophically known as timeless, time is deathless, and the Rix in the end is inspired from the word the matrix. So it's like how to break through these matrices of time and death through the philosophy of Kali. That's the story behind the name. And the plot then, yes, it's about, there will be fun action, there is fun dynamics between people, there's all of that. One thing I've been very disappointed in is that a lot of modern interpretations of Kali just focus on the surface level story. That it's the Kalika Puran story. She's killing the demon, she's stepping on Shiv. There's some symbolism here or there that they talk about. But other than that, it's just a very basic story that's explored. We aren't really talking about her relation to us in the terms of her subconscious and unconscious mind. In the sense that psychologically, Dr. Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychologist, proposes that what we think we are is just 1% of who we are. 99% of us is our unconscious mind. It's the darkness within. And now in a purity mentality, we think that this darkness is bad, this subconscious is bad, and we suppress all these things within. Kali is the dismantling of the conscious mind. Kali is the unbecoming. Kali is the ego side, let's call it, like a suicide, the ego side, the death of the self constantly over and over and over and over again, to the point where we just realize very basic fundamental truths. It's nothing to, yes, there are dramatic moments,
of course,
but it's nothing ultimately transcendental that you've reached Kali Lok or something. It's just about reevaluating yourself, dying within multiple times, accepting death, accepting time, accepting your own blemishes. And it's a deep acceptance of what we think of as our flaws, of our anger, of our greed, of jealousy. Only through the deep acceptance of them can we transform them. Those are energies, those are innocent energies which need to be transformed. And Kali helps with that. So the book then becomes a lot less about adaptation of, let's say, any of Kali's stories. It's my own unique story, unique characters. It's about a fictional daughter of Kali, let's say. And it becomes a lot more about the forgotten philosophies of Kali, which aren't really spoken about, which have been forgotten, which psychologists outside like Dr. Carl Jung have talked about. And we respect her, we do her bhakti, but understand so little of her. And that's why that was my fascination with that deity, with that state of consciousness, call it whatever.
Interesting. But again, coming back to the same part of a lot of these concepts which is residing in our own roots. But today, if we have to get more information, we need to go somewhere else, pick it up from the Western world or somewhere else, and then bring it back, use it as a reference, and then start talking to our own people. But unfortunately, that's how it is today. But this is amazing. I'm looking forward to.
Thank you.
One, I'm very excited about the anthology because it's so. Personally, I'm very excited about seeing your name with a lot of other very well-known names, and it was such a beautiful moment when I just got to see that post on social media. So congratulations once
Thank you.
again on this. I'm wishing you all the very best in your writing journey, because there's a lot that you are trying to experience. There's a lot that you are trying to learn about yourself while you're also immensely polishing your craft. So that's a huge journey in itself. So wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much.
In all the times that you feel lost, so that you may always find yourself in every way possible. Is there any because you've had a very strong, good fan following also, few genuine people who's always been connected with you with your writing journey. Any messages that you want to give away to your people who've read your work, people who believe in you?
As someone who started out really young and was a debut author, I now understand that finding genuine authors or genuine readers, it's almost close to impossible. Doesn't matter who is your publisher.
True.
So that kind of love very early on, it wasn't some crazy in thousands or anything. Like even if it's a crowd of like hundreds who are very, very genuine to this point, like whatever I write, they would read. That I take as a blessing. And even one person reading that, I take as a blessing. And more than reading, it's what I've seen. What has really touched my heart is readers who showed up to the World Book Fair to show me copies of Kaliyuga 1, and they have annotated it like crazy. I have never annotated any of my books ever in my life, any of my academic textbooks. And a 300-page book by a debut author when he was 21, they've annotated those. That really moved me. That really touched me. So that's the kind of love that also somewhere keeps one going. At the same time, it's not to invalidate any of that. That all is very, very beautiful. That's just a fraction of the reason. That's incidental. And I think that's how it happens, is when you're not trying to do it for someone else. I'm not trying to appease someone. I apologize to all those who are waiting for Kaliyuga 3. And I'm not trying to do that, because the inner calling is something entirely different. So in that sense, it also is that whether or not that is there, the spirit and the authenticity still shall remain. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that with all humility, that that's just the path, that's just the process. All of this is just incidental success, let me call it. But those who have stuck through, though they have really shown that they're there willing to help support someone who's not already a big name. Usually people are flocking around those who are already big. That's been a blessing.
That's like truly beautiful. Very few people who are genuinely at every point trying to polish their craft, working for the love of writing. I think that's a huge thing that we are missing nowadays, because we see a lot of new authors, not new authors, technically new books coming out where you have a brand name, but the writing is not writing anymore. It's very clearly for the market or for the revenue or whatever you call it. So very happy to see so many such genuine writers, and also at the same time, and the more we interact with a lot of people, to see genuine readers. That's another amazing blessings. And you start conversing with these people, you have no idea how the time flies. So that's great to have.
One last thing I would say about that is that one of my hardcore readers who's now become an alpha reader for no matter what I'm writing, his name is Kshitij Bajpai. And he was reading the draft of Kaliyuga 2. And then there's a big reveal at the end of Kaliyuga 2. And it was originally intended for Kaliyuga 3 instead. And then it was him who recommended that why not have some kind of a big reveal of the identities of these two mysterious characters at the end of book 2 instead. And that worked perfectly, I think.
That actually did. I mean, it created a more... Otherwise, it always... Even I've told you that the ending came out really well in book 2, because otherwise it would have been felt a little incomplete, because you went through a big journey, but you found something missing. You're not reaching anywhere. It's not even about the destination, but something was still missing. And it's a pain to wait for the next book. We don't know when you will write. So I think the authors are doing a huge crime while asking the readers to wait so long. So I definitely think, Kshitij, thank you so much for that feedback too, because of which we had better closure with book 2. So, but honestly. Wishing you all the very
Thank you
best,
so much,
Harsheath.
Naghma.
It's been amazing having
Thank
you
you.
on this chat. Like multiple
Likewise.
times that we talk, it's always also good to sometimes record our chat as well.
Yes.
But looking forward to having you here again. And with your new project that is coming out, hoping to see you having these kind of conversations with a lot more
Sure.
people.
Thank
And
you.
Wishing you all the very
Thank
best.
you.
Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
The next show by Naghma